Hey, Bright Lights. Welcome back to the Architecting Podcast. I am so excited today to have as my guest business coach and host of the She Thinks Big podcast, author of a book by the same name, Andrea Liebross. Welcome, Andrea.
Thanks for having me, Angela. We've got Angela and Andrea. See,
Yeah,
some
there we
great
go.
names. There
A
we
lot
go.
of people will mix the two
I
things
know.
up too.
I hear. I agree. I agree.
So you had reached out to me because there is a lot of similarities between the work that you do, and you work with a lot of women in the AEC industry. I should point that out. And a lot of the themes that we explore on the Architecting podcast. And I think one of the biggest one is one I hear all the time from my listeners, and that is I am overwhelmed, stressed out, burned out. And you have a lot to say about hustle culture. So please share your thoughts.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me. Yeah, I work with female entrepreneurs, business owners. A lot of them happen to be in this creative space and they love what they do, but but and they're fine. I'm going to throw that in there as well, right? So nothing's really gone wrong. I like to say that a lot of times to people, like, nothing's gone wrong. There's no disaster here. And but okay, but they really want they have a desire for growing with ease and clarity, right? Personally and professionally. So across the board, these women are ambitious and driven. Um, but they're also feeling stuck, overwhelmed, unclear on next steps that they need to take to reach their big goals. And that all kind of leads to burnout.
Yeah, I love that you said that because when we study burnout, and it is something I've done a lot of research on, it has nothing to do with how busy you are. A lot of people don't
No.
realize that. It has to do with how purpose driven and meaningful what you're doing is.
Yeah, it really doesn't. I mean, I guess also most of these women, to be honest, would say they're busy. Okay. And they feel like they have no time. And sometimes they don't have like they call it a margin between work and home. But that's not really what's the root. That's kind of like what comes out on the outside. It's really more of this internal struggle. And they sort of suffer around a couple different specific areas. I think one of them is in something that doesn't really get talked about a lot, but it's there, is really this desire for financial growth with a clear plan. Like, how is this going to happen? How am I going to scale my business or move up in my career? And yes, it can all sound great and we can talk about it, but what are literally the action steps? So I talk about that as like, how do we turn your vision into action? And without that, you kind of feel like you're floating, right? You're just floating out there, kind of living day by day, hoping that someday in the future, way out there in the future, you'll get to where you want to go. So I think that's a common theme, this desire for financial growth with the clear plan that I hear. Um, Another thing that happens that leads to this feeling is of overwhelm. And they can usually identify this, the need for better systems and delegation. Okay.
Hmm.
So we as women are not usually great delegators in the sense that something is getting entirely removed off of our plate. Okay. So I do lots of talking about delegation with my clients because it truly is a skill. It's a skill. You can learn it. No one's born a great delegator. And if you are using delegation properly, there's levels of delegation. There's about five, I say five levels of delegation. We're really good at levels one and two, which are, hey, I want you to do this in this exact way with these exact steps, and it needs to be done by X. Okay. But that takes up, there's a mental load to that kind of delegating because you have had to think about all of that. Okay. What we're really craving is someone to just take care of it. Can someone please just take care of it? Like,
Yes.
right? Do you know what I'm talking about? Here's kind of what I want it to look like in the end. Here's why. Can you just make it happen? And so a lot of women I talk to are weighed down by day-to-day tasks, right? And they don't want to handle those anymore. They just want someone else to do it. And lack of someone else doing it or lack of there being a system around it creates a lot of stress and overwhelm and burnout.
Yeah, and I think some of it is this feeling of no one will do it the way you would.
Yes.
And how do we overcome that need to micromanage or control?
Right. So I like to say that you've got to have thought options. Okay. So thinking no one will do it the way you want them to do it is an option. Totally an option. Like it's fine. I've said it too, believed it too. That's something I've said. However, it's not really a useful option and it's not serving you. So we have to kind of start eavesdropping in on our thoughts a little bit and notice, is thinking that no one else will do it the way I want it to do it, or it's going to take me just as long to teach someone how to do it, might as well just do it myself. Are those useful or are they serving us? The answer probably to that is no. And I think most people would agree that the answer to that is no. So, how do we move past that? I think another option, I like to think of thoughts as like it's like a tray of hors d'oeuvres, or you're at a buffet. Which thought am I going to choose? Right? Which one am I going to choose? I think a good one is I would suggest, or let me throw this out there and see if it resonates with you. An option might be, hey, delegating is going to be a key to my success or growth. It's going to be a key to me feeling better about things. It's going to be a key for me tackling each day with ease, making things flow. If you can believe or get on the train that's going to the place where delegating can help me, it is a key to helping me feel better, you're on to something. And then you've got to kind of perfect that skill. Right. You've got to perfect that skill. And we could go down we could have a whole podcast just about that.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, I find myself sometimes the things I can delegate are the things I love to do. And
Hmm.
maybe they aren't always the highest use of my time, but I enjoy these tasks and it's hard to let them go.
Yes. So I created, to exact to that point, I created this tool for myself really originally, and now I'm happy to share it with your listeners. It's really kind of like a matrix or a rubric that I call helping you operate in your zone of extraordinary achievement. Okay. So you've got to kind of ask yourself some questions, couple of questions. Is what I'm doing, is this task at hand, is this going to move the needle? Does this matter? Or is it a nice to have or is it a need to have? Okay. So, because a lot of times we're doing stuff that's like, well, I mean, it's not bad. It's not useful, but is it really going to make a difference? So if it's really going to make a difference, okay, great. Next question. Am I the only person in the world that can do it? Like, am I truly the only person? 90% of the time, the answer to that is no, you're not the only person. Okay. All right. So that gives us a clue there too. Next, is this something that I need to know how to do? Right. So even though I might not be the only person in the world, is this something I have to know how to do? It's going to have, this is a skill I need to have under my belt. It might be. Okay. That factors in. And then the last piece is, do I really enjoy doing it? Okay, kind of to your point. So, yeah, you might enjoy doing it, but if that's the only thing that kind of came out of all of these questions, someone else could do it. It's not something that you really need to know how to do, and it is going to move the needle forward, then you might want to consider delegating. So, this matrix kind of helps you figure out, what are your high priorities, medium, and low for you yourself to do it. So I can share that link with you. We can put it in the show notes, but it's part of the toolkit that goes with the She Thinks Big book on my website if you want to find it.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
what I think is powerful about that is it is a shifting from good to great, which I know is a big theme you explore. It's why
Yes.
the term she thinks big. So could you talk a little bit more about big thinking versus the kind of too small, limited thinking that a lot of people fall into of just being competent?
Yeah, just competent, fine, right? It's okay. Um big thinkers really, I use the acronym TRUST to describe the 5 things that big thinkers do. Okay, so if we use these two kind of examples that we've talked about already, this desire for financial growth with a clear plan and the need for better systems and delegation, you've got to attack those with thought options. Okay, you've got to use thought options as you approach those two topics. So the T in trust, the first T, stands for thought options. Big thinkers know that they have this buffet of thoughts in front of them and they can choose which ones are going to serve them or which ones are going to be useful. So, like if we talk about finances, looking at the bottom line in your bank account does not really tell the whole story of the health of your business or the health of you as your home at home, right? It doesn't tell the whole story. It's an option. Okay, so if you think, oh, I just look at that bank account number at the bottom number, and I gulp, okay, all right, is that thought serving you? Or would it be better to think, hey, it would be really helpful to get a bigger, broader, more financial picture. And I can, use my resources to do that. That's probably a better thought. Okay. So there are, we have thoughts about facts. Okay. So you and I, before we went on air, were talking about the weather since we're both living here in the Midwest. Okay. So right now, today, at my house, it's going to be about 50 degrees and sunny. I have options of how I want to think about that. I could think, oh my gosh, 50? I mean, when is it going to be 70? 50 is just not warm enough. Or I could think, hey, it's better than last week when it was -2. Okay. So, same fact of 50 degrees, you've got thought options. So, big thinkers or people that are wanting to get out of that small kind of thinking have to go down that path of knowing that they have thought options. That's one thing. I think, second thing, the R in trust stands for real problem. Okay. So big thinkers realize that the real problem here, the only problem is the fact that you don't want to experience a negative feeling. Okay. So,
Ah,
all right. So small thinkers want to avoid this negative feeling. It's safe. Like think about the delegating and no one's going to do it the way I want them to do it, or it's just easier for me to do it. Okay. Because why are they thinking that? Because if they do delegate, they run the risk of being disappointed. They run the risk of being frustrated. No one wants to feel disappointed or frustrated. Okay. So we stay in our comfy zone of small thinking. But big thinkers realize that, like, hey, if the worst thing that can happen is just a feeling, I know how to do feelings. You know how to do feelings. We all know how to do feelings. Like, they're willing to go there. Okay. So I think a lot of what I'm doing when I'm coaching people and I'm working with my clients is I'm helping them A, create thought options, because this is kind of hard work, and B, recognize if there really is a problem, or is the problem just that you don't want to have a negative feeling. So that's the T in R in trust.
yeah.
Yeah.
And
Should I
so,
keep going? Should I
yeah,
tell you
go
what
ahead.
U
Yeah,
is?
let's
All
hear
right.
the rest. Don't,
All
it's a
right.
cliffhanger here.
All right, cliffhanger. So the U in trust stands for uncertainty or unknown. Okay. So I think if we go back to burnout or feeling overwhelmed, a lot of what creates that overwhelm is the unknown or the uncertainty. Okay. I don't know if this client is going to like what I did. I don't know if they're going to accept the proposal. I don't know if my kid's going to get into the college they want to get into. Right. What all these, like, our lives are full of uncertainty and unknown. But you have to, like, kind of embrace that. You've got to get you've got to get to a place where you're okay with not knowing. I'm not saying you have to love it, okay? But you've got to just be okay with it. All right? So, if you are someone that catches yourself saying, I'm going to think about it, okay? A really good exercise that you can do today is to ask yourself, what exactly am I thinking about? So, something that happens in my world a lot is I'm doing a consult call with a prospective client. I get to know them, understand what's happening. We decide together that yes, I probably can help them. And they are like, "Yep, I think this is a good thing. I think I would really like to work with you. But I'm going to think about it a little bit. I want to think about it. I want to sleep on it. I want to, okay. Normal response, right? We have that response to tons of things. Um, and I'm all about thinking, clearly, if I wouldn't have titled my book or podcast that. However, I always ask permission. Can I put my coach hat on here for a minute? Sure, they say 99% of the time. What exactly are you thinking about? You just told me that you think like we're a good match and I can help you. I'm happy to help you. What exactly are you thinking about? No one has a good answer to that. No one. They kind of come up with like, I kind of call them excuses, or I need to check the bank account. You kind of know what's in there. You kind of know. Okay. Or I need to run this by whoever. Okay. Really, what's going on in that 5 seconds is your brain is trying to get comfortable with the uncertainty or the unknown of what's ahead. Hey, if I start working with her, is this really going to make a difference? Or, hey, if we start an engagement here, what's it going to mean for me? How much time is it going to take? Or, you know, oh, I might now actually have to do some work. Okay. So big thinkers recognize that that uncertainty piece is just part of life, right? And you getting comfortable with that is work. Again, I call it, like in my book, I call it the work worth doing. Okay. Like this is the work worth doing. This is what makes life interesting. This is what moves you to a better place. Trust me, that is work worth doing. So the U in trust stands for embracing uncertainty or the unknown, which then moves us to S in trust. And that stands for securing support. Okay. So I don't know anyone out there who is, and I'm going to put this in air quotes, successful, who doesn't surround themselves with support. And
Yeah.
that can look like so many things, right? That can look like so many things. So if we go back to finances, okay, you know, I'm guessing most of your listeners do not have an MBA with a concentration in finance. Okay. So, or they did not take 5 classes in college on how to read financial statements. Okay. So you don't know how to do that. And that's okay. That's okay. No one, you didn't miss something. So, how can you surround yourself with a support system that does know how to help you interpret that? Okay. How can you, when we're talking about better systems or delegation, how can you support yourself in enhancing that skill? How can you support yourself in getting someone on board that can help you streamline your systems? How can you get support in managing your mind? Right? Like that's a whole thing too. I think, you know, our success is really has 2 ingredients. It's mindset and it's systems. And 80% of success really goes back to having the right mindset or managing your mind. So, who is supporting you in that? And a lot of times people say, oh, my family, my spouse, my parent, my kid, whatever they say. So, they go to family. And I'm so happy that your family is supporting you, but their real job is to love you. Like, ultimately, their job, their only job is to love you. So let's leave them in the love category and surround yourself with support that is going to help you in these other categories because that's someone else's area of expertise. So S stands for secure support. I'm curious what you think about that one.
I think that is so important. I always say, especially women, and especially women who are working mothers, are constantly bombarded with this false choice of they either are a good mother, and I do put that in
Yep.
quotes, or they are, working, and that you can't do both. And the thing is, you can do both. And I personally feel you should do both because you are modeling that to your
Yes.
children, whether they're girls or boys. And the way you do both is you have the support.
Right. You can't do it without support, right? You can't do it without support, or you can't do it in a way that feels easy and that flows. You can do it in a way that creates the overwhelm, the stress, and the burnout, right? But you can't do it in a way that helps things move forward. You know, there's a different, when we talk about stress, I like to say there's stuck stress and there's progress stress. So burnout or overwhelm really falls into the stuck stress category. Like you can't come up with great solutions when you're in stuck stress. It feels heavy. You feel like you don't even know what your next move is. Your brain is constantly answering these what if questions with fear responses. What if it doesn't work? What if they don't sign? What there kind of goes to the unknown. But when you're in progress stress, like you're still experiencing stress, but you're answering what if questions out of curiosity. What if I did get someone to help me understand those financial statements? What if I did have the babysitter come 30 minutes early so I could get ready in peace? What if I did, right? So you're kind
Mhm.
of curious. You're answering the what if questions out of curiosity, not out of fear. And that again is a skill too. You've got to kind of learn how to do that. And that's something that I talk to all my clients about all the time, kind of helping them answer those what if questions with um with growth in mind, with ease in mind, with flow in mind, right? Making things so that it feels good. So, securing support is huge, huge because brings me, I'll go to the last T in trust. That T stands for taking action. Okay, now, anyone listening to this podcast, I want you to give yourself a little pat on the back. Listening to this podcast is literally taking action. Like you clearly are wanting to know, learn, be something more. You're trying to create change. Okay, you're taking action. However, listening to podcasts, reading books, Googling, okay, all of which I love, clearly, since I've written a book and I'm on a podcast and I have a podcast. Okay, good, all good things. But those are what I would put into the passive action category. Okay. If you're going to create what you want to create, probably you're going to have to take massive action, not not stay in passive action. You're going to actually have to do these hard things, which means you're probably going to have to make some decisions. Okay. Taking massive action is usually the result of making a decision. So I just kind of like check in with yourself. Like, are you taking massive action? Are you doing things that probably feel uncomfortable? Are you willing to take some risks? Does that feel actually a little, kind of a little scary and exciting at the same time? Right. So taking action, taking massive action is also not easy. It's not easy. And I think there has to be kind of a switch that goes off in your brain like, yeah, I am in it to win it. And I know that that is going to involve me taking this massive action, not just staying in the safe. Because Googling podcasts, books, they're safe. They're safe, right? But they can keep you also in stuck stress, in this feeling that you need more and more and more information before you do something. So I'm here to give you permission that you don't need any more information. Okay. You probably know plenty. And, PS, whatever you decide, you can always change it, change the decision. Okay. So I'm here to give you permission to take that massive action. So that is what the last T in trust stands for. So thought options, real problem, which is just a negative feeling, uncertainty and unknown, secure support, and take action, take massive action. Those are the 5 things that big thinkers do to create more freedom in their lives, to create more of a feeling of um, ease, flow, focus, energy. And that's hard stuff. You've got to really commit to the change and doing the work. But you've got to have the right support and accountability in order to do that too.
Yeah, and I want everyone to really think about that. Imagine that word freedom and just feel how your body reacts to the idea of freedom. And a lot of the things that you're saying, Andrea, are investments we do in ourselves. Because when we feel like we are too busy, this can sound all good and we agree with it. We're nodding our head, we're smiling, but it's like, but it's one more thing. And it's
Right.
like, no, this isn't a layer cake. This is about a restructuring and restructuring, like you said, it's work, it's hard, but the payoff is so big.
It's huge. And I say, like, we have our four most valuable resources are time, money, people, and brain power, right? So if you use some of those resources, your time, money, people, or brain power, to help create more time, money, people power and energy, you're gonna, in the long run, you're gonna come out winning. So I actually call one of my coaching groups, my mastermind, runway to freedom. And you didn't even know that, but that's what I call it, because the women in there all have successful, quote, air quotes, successful businesses, but they all also are craving more freedom in their business. Like, they didn't get into doing whatever they're doing because they wanted to be working 80 hours a week, right? They wanted time, they wanted financial freedom, they wanted money, they wanted to spend their energy on the things that they want to spend their energy on. So, I really structure a lot of what I share with my clients around that end game.
So that brings me to the next thing I wanted to chat about because when I saw this on your website, I was like, oh my God, you use the term success on your own terms. Me
Yes.
too. Like that is a big one. And I will talk about we don't want to check off boxes on someone else's list. And a lot of times we resist success because we see someone else who we think of as successful and we see the price they paid for
Yes.
that success. And we think, I don't want to do that. So I'd love for you to talk a little bit about what you mean by that term and why we really should be here to be successful.
So when I say success on your own terms, I think it's two faceted. So one, kind of, what is your definition of success? Okay. So some people may say it's truly just the number in the bank account. Okay. Some people might say, hey, it's me being able to take off a week a month. Okay. Some people might say, oh, it's being able to work from anywhere. Okay. So it's kind of like, which of those freedom categories, honestly, is most important to you? All right. So let's say we've kind of figured that out, or what combination. But then how you get there needs to be on your own terms. Okay. Needs to feel like it flows. So, it's not a one size fits all kind of thing. And I am really very clear about that when I'm coaching someone, because what works for one person might not work for you, right? Some people might be totally okay with having support, if we go back to support, in the morning at home. Like, they want someone to come in every morning and help get their kids ready for school and drive them to school so that they can go to the gym in the morning and get their workout in. So then later in the day, like, they feel great and they've got kind of a free schedule. Okay, that's kind of like your terms. All right. Someone else might say, actually, I have a client right now. She would never do that. Okay. She would never do that. She feels like doing that is taking away like the best time. She actually calls it the sweetest time. She's like, my kids are the sweetest in the
Uh-huh.
morning. Okay. They're little. They're like 6, 3, and 0. She's like, they're the sweetest in the morning. I would not want to do that. Okay. Because I brought that up to her. It's like, hey, here's an option. All right. No, that's not on her terms. Okay. So we've got to craft kind of like what feels good to you. Right. And that kind of goes back to, which thought option do you want to choose? Right. Because I gave her options. Like, hey, have you ever thought about this? Have you ever thought about that? Right. Some of those thoughts didn't serve her. The thought about having someone come in the morning didn't serve her, wasn't useful to her. Okay. You've so we have to really dig deep into, what do you want more of? What do you want less of? What do you want to do differently? And a lot of times in a work or business setting, we might be asking our clients that. Okay. Actually, think about it in your field. I mean, I bet you're constantly asking clients, like, hey, how do you want to use this space? Okay. How do you want it to feel? I want to design it. So if it's super important that the sunlight shines in here, then we need to make sure that this room is facing in the right direction and there's enough windows. Okay. So you're asking other people, but are you asking yourself? Like, what do you want more of? What do you want less of? What do you want to do differently? And is anyone listening to you? Like, say you are asking yourself that, then who's taking inventory on your answers and who's holding you accountable to making that happen? And so I think success on your own terms is really about you crafting kind of something that feels, I like to say, like velvety, or it feels warm to you. It feels snuggly to you. It feels like luscious. Okay. That's how like your life should feel. That's how your support system should feel. That's how you should feel as you work through creating success on your own terms. And this is work. I mean, this is why, people invest, right, in, like you said, time, money, energy into making these things happen. So I love to say that I work with unapologetically ambitious women. So that's kind of a mouthful, but unapologetically ambitious women to create success on their own terms that's sustainable. So sustainable success.
Yeah, and I think that word unapologetic is key. So we got to get over ourselves, right?
We
It's
do.
so easy to think, who am I to want that? Or, yeah, I dream that, but if I say it out loud, people are going to look at me funny. How do we get past that?
So this is again kind of a skill, okay? So this is someone might say, well, she's super confident. She just tells you, okay? So I have a client who recently won this award. It was huge. Um, and I'm going to botch what it was. It was something like Leader of the Year, okay, in her company. And this came with literally like a big prize. Like they give you money that you have to spend in either, and they give you stores like Tiffany's, Chanel, all these things, okay, which is kind of fun. So she's like shouting this from the rooftops, okay? She is proud to say it. Now, I am sure that some people are like, oh my God, she is like boasting. Who does she think she is? Okay. And she knows that people might say that. She also knows that people might be thrilled for her, right? So there's a level of confidence that goes with that. And really, what I like to say, confidence, the definition of confidence, this is not in Webster's dictionary, by the way, this is the Andrea Liebross definition, is your willingness to feel any feeling. So by her saying, I won Leader of the Year, she has to be willing to feel a little bit embarrassed. She has to be willing to feel that, like, we'll call it like maybe hate that someone has for her. She also has to be willing to feel or accept the praise, right? So I think you have to evolve you have to get to a place where you're willing to feel any feeling. Again, this is like the work worth doing. This is where if you can surround yourself with this sort of luxurious velvety robe, then you're going to make it happen. And I love being like that robe because we talked about this. She's like, should I tell people? I'm like, yes, you should tell people, right? She's like, I think I am. I'm like, okay. And I challenged her. I said, you need to tell 10 people by the end of the day. And I want you to Voxer me back and tell me the list of people, right? So you that has to start to feel okay.
Yeah, well, we could talk all day. I
We
am
could.
loving this conversation, but we do have to wrap up. But I wanted to give you an opportunity to talk a little bit more about how people can contact you, how they can work with you, how they
Yeah,
can get your book.
sure. If you're looking for a link, one link that surrounds all of that, you can access the book, the podcast, my website. How to contact me is Andrea's with an S, links with an S.com. And I'm sure Angela put that in the show notes. I'll also give you, Angela, the specific link to that matrix I was talking about, decision making matrix. We can put
Perfect.
that in there too. But I work with women really all over the world. Everything I do is virtual, is by Zoom. Sometimes if it's a special occasion, we might meet in person. Um, but I help them really create what the success on your own terms. Everybody that I'm working with is really, if I had to look for like a commonality, it's really more about their mindset than anything else, than the number in the bank account, or, how big their business is, or what position they hold in their company. It's really more about they want to grow, and they come at it from a place of wanting, not, I mean, these terms are so overused, but not scarcity, but more abundance. And they want to get better at that. So
I
come
love it.
contact me, set up a call. Like, I don't mind talking to anyone. I'll have a conversation with anyone. I always say, like, what's the worst thing that can happen in the conversation? You leave with like an aha moment. Okay, great. So, yeah.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me today. I've really enjoyed this conversation. There have been so many valuable insights that you provided.
Thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure.
All right. Well, everyone, make sure that you like, rate, review, and definitely reach out to Andrea or leave a comment on social media. Let us know what you thought about this episode and how it's helping you. And I will see you next time.